Mark and Emily Johnson set out for a perfect family day on the lake. But what started as laughter and sunshine quickly spiraled into a harrowing nightmare when their youngest son vanished without a trace, revealing a chilling secret that would shatter everything they thought they knew. The morning sun rose bright and clear over Lake Serenity, casting shimmering reflections on the water's smooth surface. It was the kind of day that seemed made for relaxation and family fun. The Johnson family, Mark, Emily, and their two children, Lily and Jake, had been eagerly awaiting this Saturday for weeks. With busy work schedules and school demands, they rarely had time together like this. Today was meant to be a break from all that, a simple boating trip where they could laugh, swim, and enjoy the peacefulness of the lake. Mark was an experienced boat owner, having grown up around water, and he took pride in maintaining their small motorboat. The family packed a cooler full of sandwiches and drinks, fishing gear, and a camera to capture their memories. As they pushed off from the dock, the children's excitement was contagious. Lily, the older sister, wore a bright pink life jacket and looked ready to explore every inch of the lake. Jake, just 6 years old, clung happily to his parents, wide-eyed with anticipation. The boat hummed gently as it glided over the water, the breeze cooling the warm air. For the first hour, everything felt perfect. The family spotted ducks near the reeds, and Emily took photos of wildflowers growing along the shoreline. Lily fished with a small rod while Jake splashed his hands in the lake, thrilled by the cool water. Mark steered toward a quiet cove they had discovered on previous trips, where the water was calm and the trees formed a natural shade. But as midday approached, dark clouds began to gather in the distance. At first, they seemed far away, just a thin gray line on the horizon. Mark kept an eye on them, but felt confident. They had time to enjoy the outing and return before any storm hit. The wind picked up slightly, rustling the trees and creating small ripples on the lake's surface. Emily suggested turning back, but Mark insisted they stay a little longer, wanting to make the most of the day. After all, they had waited so long for this chance. Suddenly, the weather shifted rapidly. The wind grew stronger, whipping the water into choppy waves. The clouds rolled in faster than anyone expected, turning the sky an ominous shade of slate gray. Lightning flashed in the distance, and thunder rumbled low and threatening.
Ow.
The family's laughter faded as concern crept into their expressions. Mark tried to start the engine, but it sputtered and coughed, refusing to respond. Panic set in as the boat drifted farther from shore, the waves rocking them unpredictably. Emily wrapped her arms tightly around the children, shielding them from the cold spray. Lily clung to her mother, her face pale, while Jake trembled and looked toward his father for reassurance. Mark struggled under the hood, checking the fuel and wires, but nothing seemed to fix the problem. The storm was closing in, and they were helpless on the water. The once calm lake now seemed like a vast and dangerous place, hiding unseen threats beneath its dark surface. As the sun dipped below the horizon, darkness fell quickly, swallowed by heavy rain and thick fog. Visibility was nearly zero, and the family huddled together, hoping for rescue. The night stretched on, filled with tension and fear. No one spoke, but the dread was palpable. Every splash, every crack of thunder, made their hearts race. They were trapped in the middle of the lake, cut off from help, and the nightmare had only just begun. As the storm raged on, the Johnson family found themselves clinging tightly to the small boat. Their bodies pressed together for warmth and comfort. Amid the howling wind and lashing rain, the waves grew larger, crashing against the sides with increasing force, threatening to tip the boat over at any moment. Mark's hands trembled as he fumbled beneath the boat's hood, trying desperately to fix the engine that refused to roar back to life. His face was pale, drenched from the relentless rain, eyes darting anxiously toward the horizon, searching for any sign of rescue or approaching help. Emily struggled to stay calm for the sake of Lily and Jake, her arms wrapped protectively around them. The children huddled close, wide-eyed and shivering, frightened by the thunder's booming echoes and the lightning's sudden jagged flashes illuminating the stormy sky. In the chaos, it was hard to tell what was worse, the terrifying storm or the growing sense of isolation. The family was utterly alone, trapped in the middle of a dark, unpredictable lake, with no signal on their phones and no other boats in sight. Suddenly, a strange noise disturbed the tense silence. It wasn't the wind or the waves, but something else, something heavy moving just beneath the water's surface. The sound was faint at first, a low rumble that seemed almost unnatural, but then it grew louder, like something massive stirring under the boat. Mark grabbed a flashlight from the storage compartment and shone its beam into the dark water around them, searching for the source of the eerie noise.
Ow.
The family's unease deepened, and without warning, a sharp jolt rocked the boat violently. The vessel tipped dangerously to one side, throwing Emily and the children off balance. The boat groaned under the pressure, and Mark struggled to keep it steady. Heart pounding, he scanned the water, but there was no visible sign of what had caused the impact. Emily's eyes widened in terror as she realized something terrible had happened. Jake was no longer beside her. Panic exploded inside her chest. She scanned frantically, reaching out to where Jake had been only moments before, but the space was empty. The small boy was gone. How could this be? The boat was small and crowded. No one could have slipped overboard unnoticed. The storm made everything difficult to see, but the water around them was filled with dark waves and splashes. Lily was frozen in place, her face pale and lips trembling, clutching her mother's hand tightly. Mark yelled for Jake, his voice lost in the roaring wind. Desperately, he grabbed a rope, trying to throw it into the water to find or pull the child back. But the waves swallowed it before it could reach far. The family's hope quickly turned into dread. They searched frantically, eyes straining in the darkness, but the storm's fury swallowed any trace of the boy. The boat was drifting, unstable and powerless, with the rain blurring every edge. As the night dragged on, the family took turns scanning the lake, calling out for Jake, hoping for a miracle. But there was no answer, no sign of the missing child. Their rescue seemed impossible. The storm was relentless, the lake vast and unforgiving. Each moment without Jake was unbearable, and the weight of fear pressed heavily on their hearts. By the time first light broke through the gray clouds, the storm had eased, but the terror remained. The Johnson family was exhausted, cold, and broken. Their calls had finally reached someone on shore, triggering a desperate rescue effort. But the mystery of the missing boy on a small boat in the middle of a lake was only beginning to unfold. And the nightmare was far from over. When the rescue team finally reached the stranded boat at dawn, the storm had passed, but the air was thick with tension and despair. Mark, Emily, and Lily were exhausted, soaked to the bone, and visibly shaken. They clung to each other, relief and anguish blending in their expressions. But one crucial piece was missing. Jake was nowhere to be found. The rescuers immediately launched a thorough search of the lake, dragging nets through the water and scanning the shoreline with flashlights. Helicopters circled overhead and teams of volunteers combed the nearby woods, desperate for any sign of the lost boy. As the hours stretched into days, the search grew more intense and complex. Police officers, dive teams, and volunteers scoured every inch of the lake and surrounding area. Yet, there was no trace of Jake and O clothing, no personal items, no footprints leading away from the water. The silence was deafening, as if the boy had vanished into thin air. The community was gripped by sorrow and confusion, unable to understand how a child could disappear from such a small boat in such a short time. Meanwhile, detectives began probing deeper into the Johnson family's story. At first, Mark and Emily were cooperative, recounting the day's events in painful detail. But subtle inconsistencies started to emerge in their accounts. Some questioned how a child could simply vanish without anyone noticing in the cramped space of the boat. Others wondered why Mark had seemed so frantic and disorganized when trying to fix the engine, behavior that didn't quite fit with his reputation as a competent boater. The police began to investigate Mark's background, searching for any motives or unusual activity leading up to the trip. One startling discovery came to light when local investigators checked recent financial records. They found that Mark had taken out a significantly large life insurance policy on his entire family just weeks before the boating excursion. The amount was unusual for their modest lifestyle and raised immediate red flags. Neighbors recalled hearing heated arguments between Mark and Emily in recent months, adding fuel to suspicions about the true nature of the family's situation. Could this accident have been planned? Was Jake's disappearance something more sinister than a tragic mishap? As the investigation unfolded, law enforcement reviewed surveillance footage from the marina and nearby stores. A troubling pattern emerged. Mark had made several late-night trips to remote locations shortly before the incident. He had also purchased unusual items, including chemicals and tools not typically associated with routine boat maintenance. These revelations deepened the mystery and cast a shadow over the family's tragedy. The community's support shifted from sympathy to suspicion, creating a tense atmosphere around the Johnsons. Emily appeared overwhelmed, torn between grief and fear. Lily's silence and withdrawn demeanor spoke volumes about the trauma she had endured. With every passing day, the search for Jake became more urgent, not only to find the missing boy, but to uncover the truth behind the shattered family story. The detectives faced mounting pressure to solve the case quickly. They began re-examining the evidence from multiple angles, determined to separate fact from fiction. The boating day that had started as a joyful family outing was now a complex puzzle of disappearance, deceit, and hidden motives. The nightmare was far from over, and the answers remained just out of reach, waiting to be uncovered in the dark shadows cast by the lake's calm surface. As the investigation deepened, a darker truth began to emerge beneath the surface of the Johnson family's tragedy. Forensic experts examined the boat in detail and found clear signs of tampering. The fuel line had been deliberately cut, a sabotage that ensured the engine would fail. It wasn't an accident. Someone had planned for the boat to stall far from shore. This discovery shocked the community and raised terrifying questions about who could have done such a thing and why. Meanwhile, toxicology reports revealed traces of a mild sedative in the children's drinks, enough to cause drowsiness, but not enough to incapacitate fully. This subtle detail suggested someone wanted to dull the children's awareness, perhaps to make them less likely to resist or notice danger. The presence of sedatives added a sinister layer to the case, transforming it from a boating mishap to a calculated crime. With new leads unfolding, police expanded their search beyond the lake and its immediate surroundings. Then, a hiker found something chilling deep in the forest, several miles from the lake's edge. A small backpack belonging to Jake. Inside, investigators discovered the child's favorite toys and a handwritten note, shaky and nearly illegible. The note was brief but disturbing, claiming that Jake had escaped from a dangerous place and pleading for help. It hinted at fear and desperation, but the full meaning was unclear. This discovery shifted the investigation dramatically. Authorities now considered the possibility that Jake had been taken or had fled from someone he feared. The note suggested the boy was alive but in danger, somewhere isolated and hidden. The search intensified, with new teams exploring cabins, abandoned buildings, and remote areas in the surrounding woods. Attention soon turned back to Mark Johnson. Surveillance footage surfaced showing him visiting secluded locations late at night, far from the public eye. Witnesses reported seeing him in areas with little traffic or neighbors, fueling speculation that he was hiding something. The once cooperative father now appeared evasive and nervous during police interviews, raising suspicions that he was not being honest. Detectives dug into Mark's personal life and financial dealings, uncovering a troubling pattern of secretive behavior. There were unexplained withdrawals from bank accounts and the recent purchase of equipment that had no clear purpose, related to boating or family activities. The life insurance policy, combined with the boat's sabotage and sedatives, painted a grim picture, yet the motive remained unclear. Why risk everything in such a dangerous and complicated plan? Theories emerged about Mark's possible desperation, financial troubles, or desire to escape his current life. Had he planned to disappear with Jake, leaving the rest of the family behind? Had the boating trip been a cover for something far more sinister? As days turned into weeks, the pressure mounted on the police to find Jake and expose the truth. Emily and Lily remained at the center of the unfolding drama, struggling to heal while grappling with uncertainty and suspicion. The community's trust shattered as whispers of betrayal spread, and neighbors wondered if the perfect family they had admired was nothing more than a facade hiding a chilling crime. The haunting mystery of the missing child, the sabotaged boat, and the secret note left behind cast a long shadow over Lake Serenity. The nightmare was no longer just about surviving a storm. It was about uncovering a carefully hidden betrayal that threatened to destroy everything the Johnson family had once held dear. Dark ITs passed in a tense atmosphere of hope and fear, until finally, a breakthrough brought the nightmare to a horrifying climax. Jake was found alive, but terrified, hidden away in a small remote cabin deep in the woods several miles from Lake Serenity. The discovery was made by a search party following a faint trail of footprints and signs of recent activity, footprints too small to belong to any adult. The cabin was isolated, surrounded by thick trees and far from any main road, a place few would think to look. Jake's condition was fragile. He was dehydrated, frightened, and confused, but unharmed physically. His rescue brought immediate relief, but also opened a new chapter in the dark story. Authorities quickly took Jake into protective custody, and the focus shifted to unraveling what had really happened. The boy's account, pieced together with careful questioning and observation, painted a disturbing picture. Jake explained that it was Mark, his own father, who had orchestrated the entire ordeal. According to Jake, Mark had planned the trip not as a simple family outing, but as a way to disappear with his youngest son, hoping to start a new life far away. The boat's engine had been deliberately sabotaged to strand them on the lake, and the sedatives in the drinks were meant to keep Jake and Lily subdued and less likely to resist. Mark's intentions were cold and calculated. He had believed that by faking an accident and making Jake disappear, he could collect the large life insurance payout he had recently secured. But when things didn't go according to plan, when Jake escaped into the woods and sought help Mark, his carefully laid scheme began to unravel. Jake's courage in fleeing to safety was a crucial turning point, one that ultimately led to the truth being exposed. The community, once shocked by the disappearance, was now stunned by the betrayal within the family. Friends and neighbors who had admired Mark's calm and reliable persona struggled to accept the reality of his actions. Emily was left devastated, grappling with the knowledge that her husband had planned to deceive and harm their family. Lily, too young to fully understand the details, sensed the tension and sadness that now filled their home. Law enforcement moved quickly to arrest Mark. Evidence collected from the boat, financial records, surveillance footage, and Jake's testimony formed an overwhelming case against him. During his arrest, Mark showed little resistance, and the weight of his actions seemed to crush him. The court proceedings that followed drew intense public attention, as the story of a father's betrayal and a child's survival captured the nation's interest. Though justice was pursued, the scars of the ordeal remained. Emily and her children faced a long road toward healing, surrounded by community support, but shadowed by trauma. The boating day that had started with laughter and promise had turned into a nightmare. Nightmare born not just from nature's fury, but from the dark intentions of a man who had betrayed his own family. In the end, Lake Serenity's calm waters concealed a story of deceit, survival, and heartbreak. The nightmare was over, but the echoes of that terrible day would linger for years to come. A haunting reminder that sometimes danger lies not in the storm, but in those we trust the most.